Okay, so continuing on with this theme of the shadow. We're going to watch some Krishnamurti. He's going to talk about fear, which is typically associated with the shadow, right? But I made a distinction in my shadow video that, you know, shadow work, things that are in the shadow, like concepts about yourself or about anything, they do not have to be negative. The ego does not have to perceive them as negative. There's positive. I think there's things that we love about ourselves that are there. Sometimes things we love about ourselves are hidden, or things that we love in general are hidden. I brought this up in regards to people in the closet, right? Sexual orientation. Let's say the society says no, but you're like, no, I love it. Like somewhere you buried some aspect of yourself to where, like, I don't know, the type of person you actually would be attracted to or fall in love with or whatever the fuck is this, but you're hiding it because you're trying to, fit in with the world. uh, I'll come back to that, Ben. Don't worry. Uh, so okay, if we're gonna, since so most, stereotypically, people will tie fear in regards to the shadow, tie them together, or they'll make it an aspect of the shadow. Uh, look at some fear. This video is called "Observing the Cause of Fear" by Krishnamurti. Here we go.
What is
Artist like
fear?
just came in or something.
Fear of being ill. We've all been ill, haven't we, at one time or another? The earth is crowded with doctors and pills. We've all been ill. What is the value or significance of illness, of which you're so frightened? Please. What is the significance of being ill? Has it any meaning at all? Or when fear interferes with illness, do you learn anything at all? Or can one look at that illness quite objectively, not immediately identify oneself with that pain, that illness, and then battle with it, wanting to be healthy, and so on. So fear of being ill, if one allows illness not to an extreme point of terminal illness, then it has a great significance. It indicates a great deal. It opens the door to many things. But when there is fear, all the doors are shut tight. And we're now inquiring also, what is fear?
So interesting. I wonder if he means something like you were cutting off like your psychological possibilities because being lost in that fear, you're not actually looking at the thing that's happening. You're looking at your own emotional fear attached to the ego and reflecting to itself. It's harder to see actual possibilities for getting at it. Or it could mean something weirder. Or not what I said at all. Who knows? Here we go. Here we go.
And we're now inquiring also, what is fear? Fear of losing pleasure, fear of tomorrow, fear of darkness, fear of one's husband or wife, fear of your gurus. Of course, otherwise you wouldn't follow them. Fear not having.
Scary one. That fear of your gurus. Like, if not, you wouldn't even be following them. you didn't fear them, you wouldn't follow them. That's a very dark statement. And he says this as people look at him as a guru. He says it to them, the audience.
Fear of one's husband or wife, fear of your gurus, of course, otherwise you wouldn't follow them. Fear not having his peculiar enlightenment. Think of a guru having enlightenment. Fear of so many things. Neighbor, war, the terrorists, and all the things that the priests have put together for 2,000 years in Christianity. And all the things that ancient India has put together, 3,000 to 5,000 years. There are all kinds of extraordinary traditions in India. I won't go into it now. They're really quite extraordinary, some of them. So, there's a fear of heaven and hell, fear of the most trivial things of our life. So we're going together, look at the cause of fear. As we said, if one can discover for oneself the cause, then you can deal with the cause. And you can.
That's what I was saying before about the Fred Hampton leftist, that video. It's like, oh, if we diagnose it correctly, oh, solution's right there because you can see what's actually happening. I wonder if he's going in that direction. I've never seen this before.
Cover for oneself the cause, then you can deal with the cause. And you can end the cause. Cause, if you observe very carefully, the cause, then that very cause comes to an end. You don't have to do anything about it, just to observe the cause.
Now that I've heard from him before. The observation. When I bring this notion of conditioning up, I know this sounds like woo-woo, some guy floating on a cloud, like, follow your way, like just saying like bland shit like that. Like, no, there's like technicality to this, right? It's like, oh, like, okay, you're like a real prize fighter. Like, you actually trained and studied and learned how to do this shit. It's not just yeah, I'll just punch him, it's over. I hit so hard, knock him out, it's over. No, there's actual technical skill here. So, and it's kind of practical too. The notion, when I bring up conditioning so often, it's like, okay, how do you change your conditioning? Like, well, you observe it. Because observing it is basically you telling, like, because, right? Just because there's some sort of concept that's conditioned, that's kind of like somewhat embedded in your thinking, doesn't mean your experience just turns off, right? When you observe it, or when you're, or when you're doing it, right? So if you leave your experience, if you don't go into autopilot mode, you actually stay in that observational state to where it's like almost like if you say your ABCs in your head right now, if you go A, B, C, in your head right now, right? And but you're doing it consciously in a way. Now you're actually observing yourself doing an action. Hope you heard that. I didn't go too far away from the microphone. You're observing yourself doing something. So it's like that hidden observer there that's watching you from like a third person stance. Thus, it's like I can see my own thing. It's almost like I'm watching a movie of myself. Thus, I'm kind of in like that God view of a voice or a pair of eyes from up above, bird's eye view. I can see the whole scenario. Once that happens, like, oh, I can just change it if I want to, because now I know I'm doing it. If you're unaware of it, if you don't get that view, if you are actually instead of being bird's eye view looking at it, you are actually zoomed into the experience itself, and you're kind of in autopilot mode, obviously your ego's not going to recognize it. Thus, you wouldn't be able to change it. So it's observed, whether by yourself or sometimes people have third party options, right? Hey man, you do that dorky shit every time you take a shot. Pause. A shot of liquor. Like, oh, now you're paying attention to it, or you just, there's like a observation that happens that's like a diagnosis. Now I can change it. Just saying. He would probably explain that much better than I. That's done on straight up on the QT, man. It don't need a guru or anything like that. Do any to just observe yourself. That's what I mean by eyes wide open. Don't know till you know. Here we go.
Then you can end the cause. Cause, if you observe very carefully, the cause, then that very cause comes to an end.
Yes, and I'm sorry, but I just want to add on to it. It is absolute, whatever that is, whatever that condition thing is, once you observe it, it is different, no matter what. Whether you accept it or say, I don't want this anymore, right? Or you try to break your habit or change your behavior or whatever the fuck. It's still different no matter what, just from observing it. That is, sorry, I'm gonna say it's a fact. It's a fact. Once it's observed, it's different. Point blank. That's you. That's you looking at a crossroads, saying, "I accept this now," or "I don't accept this now." Makes it different. Here we go.
You don't have to do anything about it, just to observe the cause.
I'm glad I picked this one.
You observe something external, like as you heard the rain on the canvas a few minutes ago, you hear it. And if you hear it quietly, it tells you something. It has its own music. So, what is the cause of fear?
That's right, the alphabet.
Fear of illness, fear of death, fear of 100 little things. Fear inhibits freedom. As long as there is any particle of fear about anything, there is no freedom. Which is not to be sought in some other place, though the pastures may be greener across the field. But the multiplication of this fear is growing more and more and more on earth. And if you're sitting down here seriously and considering together, taking together what's the causation of fear, then we can go into it if you're serious concern with the ending of fear. First, we must deal with the psychological fears, not the external fears. That comes later. If the psychological fears are ended completely, then you meet physical fears entirely differently, not the other way around.
So, what I think he means by that, between psychological fears and physical fears, is that the psychological aspect is the fear of things like we either think about ourselves. That makes sense. Like, almost like you have some sort of an internal judge judging you, right? It's like your own God voice. And the fear of that self judgment, right? Because right? No one wants to, if you're having a good day, you don't want to stop and be like, I just fuck up right there. And go backwards and look at that. And it's like, man. It sort of like the self acknowledgement is spooky. Yeah, I think it's the greatest fear on earth, to be honest with you. I really do. But yeah, once you deal with that, it's the physical fears, which would be something like, you know, falling off a fucking bridge or something, whatever. For me, it's lightning. Unless it's like, oh, there's my soulmate, then I'll fucking run. Lightning storms. Don't give a fuck at that point. But at the same time, I'm like, not really, but kinda. Yeah. Fuck lightning. But that's like a physical fear. There's also the psychological spirit fears in regards to like I think what he would mean is definitely what I would mean is psychological fears in regards from dealing from one psyche to another, right? Because yes, our mouths, it's our physical mouth and right, our physical ears listening and all that shit, but it's really like one mind talking to another. Even if someone's just lying to you, there's still some sort of psychological calculation to lie to you. So it's one psyche talking to another. So I consider that in the realm of psychological fears as well. Let's continue.
It's obvious indeed that we want to be fearless outwardly. Therefore, we divide the countries, beliefs, dogmas, and all that childish business. But if we begin to see the root of fear psychologically, inwardly, not as separate person with my fears, but fear as a whole.
That's the dark stuff. Well, that's the fun dark stuff. In my opinion, I think at some point in some sort of woo-woo sense of the world, I think if you go through those layers of your psyche, I think you do. It's not literal conversation, not like a fucking like, but like it's a form of conversating with these. I guess you can call them forces of nature, something like a fear. It's almost like you get an archetypal representative for some form of communication with such things. Like I get to communicate with fear itself. We know it's real. Like okay, but some sort of fear has a egotistical representative that's like your ego talking to itself. Just one's represented by like your own sense of self and one's represented by this sort of fear archetype or the fear within you has more of a voice rather than metaphorically speaking, more than being shut out and like, ew, fear, get away, run. Ugh. Then it shows you demons back, right? Whatever shit you throw at that, it's going to throw back. It's going to throw the shit back at you. You give it an ugly face, it's going to appear ugly. You're going to be like, oh, thus fear. Anyways, here we go.
Because every human being on this earth goes through fear. Even the gurus.
Who wants to live in a world where
priests,
horror films have no meaning?
Even the highest authority in Christendom.
I don't think that's what he's saying.
All over the world, every human being has fear of death, of lacking love, and dozens and dozens of fear. And because we have fears, we are not ever free. So it behoves us to examine very closely, not analytically, and then you separate the analyzer and the analyzed. Then conflict begins, right? Where there is division, there must be conflict. That's a natural, eternal law.
A whole bunch of things come into reality once there's separation. And then it's basically the ego's function itself. And why would we do that? Well, it's fucking fun. That's why. I want to go to the park on Saturday and I want to sleep in all day on Sunday. I want there to be a Saturday and a Sunday, a park and a bed Sleep, awake. Friends, frenemies. Stupid Jessica. Stupid Jessica in her pink book bag. Always picking on me. Sorry. Yeah. All right. So, fuck. I can ramble about shit like that for a long time. Uh, so yeah, good. Check out uh Jiddu Krishnamurti. I think he's an interesting guy. I found him way early on in my process of self-discovery. He's one of the early ones, me at least. I mean, granted, I only watched him not that long, but I would always remember his name, like, remember his name, like, to recommend to other people. So I'd say check him out. Or not, it's up to you. His hair's like a halo? What? Called a super comb over. Okay? The comb over. Alright, that was fun to ramble through. Like I said, check Jiddu Krishnamurti out, guys. Subscribe if you like, comment, agree, disagree. I don't think there's anything. I guess you can agree, you can disagree with something there. There's something to disagree with, I'm sure. Or just extra comments or your own point of view or whatever. What do you think? What do you think fear is? Huh? You tell me. Is it chemical reaction? Is it a I don't know psychological archetype? Is it a spiritual archetype? Is it a whatever? Whatever. Is it an external demon? For me, I'd be like, that's kind of fun. But nah, I shouldn't have that. Sounds like fun though. Don't forget to share, support, hopefully donate. Devon's Journey to Recovery, to Helping Victims of Africom, Cohen Daly, the Australian boy, Cohen Daly, the Australian boy. Don't forget to help support some content creators, Stevie, aka Redneck Economics, Sleepy J, Buy Him a Coffee, and Ali Alexandra. All links are in the description box. And with all that said, give this video a thumbs down.